Right, so move on to, well, basically this was your starting film, Scott. This was where your idea of this episode came from. The Wall.
To a degree, Pink Floyd's The Wall. I'm not completely sure I was aware of the existence of this film, a companion piece of sorts to the 1979 album, of course, until a couple of weeks back when the internet's least correct critic, Doug Nostalgia Critic Walker, released an elaborate parody/review that was roundly harangued for a complete misreading of the concepts and themes of the film. I was, I suppose, therefore, kind of expecting The Wall to be a difficult and challenging work, full of obscure symbolism and oblique messaging, whereas in retrospect, what I should have lent on was what I knew to be true and proven many times over, namely that the nostalgia critic is an idiot. Anyway, curiosity must be sated, cats be damned, so I sat me down to watch The Wall, and it is certainly a thing that I have now watched. I suppose you're expecting a plot recap, but it's not really that sort of film. It, in a lot of ways, feels more like you're sitting in on a meandering psychoanalytical session for Roger Waters, whose traumas, attitudes and fears formed the basis of the album, and now this, I suppose, adaptation of the album. There's three main threads: the modern-day isolation of a rock star from society and humanity, women in particular, inhabited here by a typically dishevelled Bob Geldof as Pink. There's also a look at the early childhood that got him there, including the trauma of his father being killed during the Second World War, and critiques of society and the education system. And then a weird fantasy sequence where Pink reimagines himself as a fascist dictator in front of rabid crowds, which is hard to read as much other than egotism run amok. Your music is not that compelling, Waters. I suppose the question that kept me engaged throughout The Wall is simply this: who is this for? It's not, after all, something that really passes muster as a film in the dramatic sense. There's little through line between the themes that are thrown out, and leaning on the album tracks to provide all the context to the visuals may perhaps have been intended as a more poetic way of storytelling, but it's just ended up not telling much of a story. So perhaps it's best left for the Pink Floyd fans, and as a largely Pink Floyd indifferent, this ain't really for me. Even so, I can't imagine it's something that fans would choose to watch over listening to the album, except maybe once as an idle curiosity. Now, to be scrupulously fair, while overall I'm not recommending that anyone not already predisposed to liking this sort of thing seek it out, I did not hate my time with The Wall. While it doesn't hang together at all well as a film, a lot of the production design is very good, and as is commonly pointed out, the animated sequences are very well executed. It's just a shame that it is so frequently deployed in ways that are only just barely symbolic to the point that they're almost literal. It's nice to see that it's a script that's fully Garth Marenghi approved, no cowardly subtext here. And in a way,
it's all surface. All surface.
And in a way, I appreciate the honesty on display here. Waters is not glamorising or softening his character flaws and weird attitudes, and I suppose recognition is the first step to changing them. What it isn't is a compelling reason for this to exist as an artefact. Yes, it is certainly not something I recommend or particularly enjoyed, but as a curiosity piece, I suppose it still holds some small value, but not much.
First of all, I have never heard of this nostalgia critic you mentioned, so I have no idea who that is, and please remind me to not look that up. That sounds like it's something I should not do.
It'd probably be better if I don't remind you to look it up, because then you won't be reminded.
Yes.
You see how that goes? Yeah.
Yes. that makes some sort of sense. Yes, but I did take my time with this. It was a miserable experience. I knew nothing about this, but I knew that it existed vaguely. I'd seen some of the animation, like the walking hammers.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, I was kind of wondering how hammers were fascist. They're just a tool they're usually used for building things, not breaking things. So you kind of misunderstood the basic concept of hammers, Waters. Well done. It reminded me of, the whole idea of like the domino theory. Like, is a theory named after not the principal use of dominoes. I always found that very strange. But yeah, hammers build things, and you wouldn't use a hammer like that for breaking. No, your symbolism actually doesn't work. But the big surprise to me was that Bob Geldof's in it. This I did not know. I was like,
yeah,
Bob Geldof? Okay. I'm like, I wonder how he's going to that. It's like, oh, he doesn't speak. Right, they dodged that particular bullet for the most part. And Bob Geldof is Hitler now. Okay. What? Some of it left me slightly confused and slightly concerned about. I'm not quite sure what they're saying here, and again, it maybe comes back to what you're saying, Scott, but who's the audience for this? But when they're showing him becoming, and you're saying that it's like just, it's maybe I shouldn't dig into it at all because so much of the rest of it is just so much surface.
Yeah.
But like, what does him becoming a fascist mean? But then when the rest of it was like you've got the animation of female genitals and stuff, and they're basically being dominated by female genitals. Like, so I'm guessing Roger Waters is an arsehole then. Oh, yeah, you're an idiot. Go away. But then when they're playing songs, and I know it's well, I know now that it's and I'm going to come back to that point. I know now it's a Pink Floyd song, but when they're playing songs with lines like "I need you to beat to a pulp on a Saturday night," but when you've got the main character in your film saying those things, like, is that or is that saying that's a good thing or a bad thing? Because honestly, I'm not sure. Whether that's Roger Waters' point of view, or it's meant to say that actually this person's bad, but this person's also meant to sort of be you and sort of be Sid Barrett. And but the biggest problem is this is a musical film. Going into this film, I knew one Pink Floyd song.
Yeah.
I've come out of this film and I know one Pink Floyd song.
Yeah.
Well, okay, technically 1.5, because I was always assumed that Another Brick in the Wall Part 1 must have been a thing. I've now heard that in this film and aware that it's very slightly different.
Yes.
And I couldn't name another song on this. Every song on this just completely bounced off of me. Like, I have never knowingly heard Pink Floyd before, apart from Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. I will never knowingly listen to Pink Floyd again. Pink Floyd are garbage. Now, I know really what you should say is Pink Floyd are not for me. I do not prefer them. No, Pink Floyd are garbage. All of their music, all of it, sweeping statement, is rubbish. No, it's a musical film in which I did not like any of the music. That's an issue.
Yes, never going to be a winner. Yes.
No, and then the rest of it was like, okay, this is barely symbolism. This is just like basically saying things like out loud, as you say. There's no subtext for most of it. Mm. You could read subtext in some of it, but you'd probably be in a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and when is this supposed to be taking place? Because it's the time scales don't make any sense, because it's some of those futuristic stuff that doesn't. But also, I'm definitely thinking too much about this.
Yes.
It doesn't deserve it. And like the Pink's father died in World War I and II. Very mixed images. Like, but I see something like that, and like, are they trying to make a point about war not changing, or are they just rubbish at recreating war because they don't really know what they're doing? And I'm going for the second one. The film supports the first idea. And then my thoughts on this were just, I got so bored with the film so quickly, and I'm just getting offended by the fact that the kind of, I guess, 7 or 8 year old Pink can't bread into jam. Because like this kid gets a slice of bread and puts a spot of jam right in the middle of it, and like, no, you can't bread and jam. You're failed as a human being. What are you doing, child?
But he was never taught by his daddy, so it's hard for him. It's hard for his life.
Yeah, it's just garbage. The only other thing that really stood out to me in this is Bob Hoskins eats a pineapple in his film in a way I've never seen anybody eat a pineapple. That nobody in history has ever eaten a pineapple in such a manner.
Well, you didn't get pineapples down to East End when he was growing up. His daddy wasn't around to teach him how to do this.
It did make me think of what Studio Ghibli film is it? It's Only Yesterday, where they get the pineapple and they don't know how to they cut it, and like, it's unripe when they. It kind of read like that. It's like, I think Bob Hoskins' character has never, or maybe real Bob Hoskins has never seen a pineapple before, and just takes a half pineapple and starts trying to eat into the middle of it. Again, it's like, you might try to think that's symbolism. I think it's either Bob Hoskins is an idiot, or they told him to go slightly mental in that scene.
Look, it was Bob Hoskins' commitment to the method. He inhabited the character of his manager, and he thought, how would this manager eat this? And that's how he did it.
It's Bob Hoskins going mental in a pineapple. It's worthy of brass eye.
Yes.
Yeah, I get the biggest one. I don't like the music. It does nothing for me. It's bounced off me, and the rest of it was just so dreary. And I don't know whether this is meant to be critical of this character or meant to just be explaining what it's like. But in either way, he's not a pleasant character, and they'll do like ridiculous misogyny and stuff. And it's like, I have no time for that. It's like either this character's a prat, and I'm not sure why you're making a film of it, or Roger Waters is a prat, and I don't want to watch a film about this sort of analogue of Roger Waters and or Sid Barrett. So, yeah. The only other point of interest was that didn't the guy playing Pink's father look an awful lot like Kevin Eldon?
Yeah, a bit, yes.
Yeah, garbage. Hated it.
It's a no for him, or a no for me, so